Hi, I'm Carolina from alwaysexpectmore.com and 30minutecrafts.com, and today we're going to get started on week 1 of our Cricut Maker block of the week. We'll be making this quilt from start to finish using the Cricut Maker to cut all of our pieces. Week 1 is our 9 patch. To make our week 1 project, our 9 patch, we're going to open up Design Space and we're going to open up the 9 patch file. I already have this set up so that everything will cut on the right fabrics. Make sure that you have your fabrics labeled, your pink fabric and your white fabric. Remember, your pink fabric doesn't actually have to be pink and your white fabric doesn't actually have to be white, but we're using these labels so we know what materials we're putting on which mats, so we make sure to get the most out of our fabric. You can go ahead and press Make It, and it will bring up your 2 mats. We have our white mat first and our pink mat second. We're going to put the fabrics on the mat. You can use the 12 by 24 inch mat that you used to cut your sashings and your borders, or you can use the 12 by 12 inch mat. It doesn't matter that the fabric hangs off. Grab your mat, put your fabric right on the mat. Make sure you're putting it right side down. I often forget and have to redo this, but if you're using that Cricut Maker pen, the marker with the blue ink, you definitely want that mark on the back of your fabric, so we just put it face down on the mat. Rub a little bit to put it in place. And then I found the most important part is right along this edge where the black roller will roll. That might pucker a little bit, and if we make sure that that edge is the most secure, I tend to get the best cuts. This mat is all ready. I'll go ahead and prepare my other mat. It doesn't matter that this mat has been used a bunch of times. There's still plenty of give on this mat. It still has plenty of uses. If you think one side's been used a lot, just turn it 180 degrees and use the other side. This fabric does not have a design on it like my polka dot did. It's a solid fabric. So for solid fabrics, there really isn't a right side up or a right side down. Now we'll go ahead and just put it in place. And make sure to rub that edge. I've got Design Space ready. I'll go ahead and turn on my maker. I'll select that maker. The material we're using is cotton. Now it's going to tell me to load my pen, make sure I have my rotary blade set, and then go ahead and load in that first mat, which is going to be my white mat. Let's move on over to the maker and do those steps. We're going to insert this washable fabric pen, take off the lid, and just put it on the back so you know where it is. Open your latch, put the pen in place, close your latch, and the pen's installed. If you don't already have your rotary blade inserted, go ahead and put it in and close your latch. Now we have our fabric all set up. We'll insert this in and get going. Don't worry about the fabric over the edge. It'll be just fine. Go ahead and press the Cricut button and watch the fabric pen mark and the rotary blade will cut. It's ready to unload. Go ahead and unload the mat. If you've got your second mat ready to go, just insert it, press the button, and this second set will draw and cut. The cut is complete. Unload your mat. And then this part is very important. Go ahead and remove that pen and put the lid back on. I've forgotten to do this and left my pen in overnight. They don't do well in open air for 12 hours. They'll dry out that quick. So make sure that you put that lid on and then just tuck your pen in the pen holder. Now we're ready to go back to our ironing board and sewing machine and start putting this block together. We have our fabric pieces cut out. The first step is to take the extra fabric and carefully peel it up. Try not to put your fingers on this mat if you can help it. The oils from your fingers are going to reduce the life of the mat. So carefully peel these up. And then I like to put the fabric either flat on a table or over the back of my chair so I don't have to press it between each time of using it. I'll go ahead and repeat this with my other mat. You can see this piece just had a little bit of a snag, and it's just the bare fiber, so I can go ahead and just tear this apart. If you are concerned about it, you can absolutely just use a pair of scissors and lay this flat over here. To remove these pieces, I have a couple options. My favorite is the tweezers that kind of look like praying mantis hands. These are part of the Cricut tool set, and they open by pressing and they close automatically. So I grab a corner and I like to carefully lift up. If I get a couple stray threads, I do like to pull them up because those stray threads can get in the way of the pen doing its job. So we'll go ahead and remove a couple of these. I'm sewing with my windows open today, so I do have a little bit of noise in the background. Sounds like a neighbor is doing a little bit of vacuuming or leaf blowing or something. But it's so warm here in San Diego. I just have to have those windows open. Now I've got a little more fray over here because I really stuck to this mat because it's been used a couple times, and so I really pushed down. If you've got a little bit of fray, I mean that's less than 1/8 of an inch, don't worry about it. You can trim off any stray threads. Now you can see this mat's been used several times. I actually used this to cut a Halloween project out of felt for 30-minute crafts, but it still works just perfect with my fabric. So again, these stray threads, I'm just going to carefully lift them off. Another great way to lift off these threads is to use transfer tape, and you can use transfer tape to just stick on here and pull those off. Okay, we have all of our pieces, so we're going to lay them out. Whatever you've chosen as your white, and it doesn't have to actually be a white, but whatever you've chosen as your white is going to make kind of like a dice, the number 5. And this is going to create our checkerboard pattern. And then we have these. Make sure you're doing blue line side all in the same direction. So in this case, I'm doing my blue line side down, which is my wrong side, and my right side up. And I'm doing this whole series using my old machine. This machine was bought as a gift for me by my parents when I graduated from high school. So it's not a young machine, it's almost 20 years old. There are lots of even way older machines out on the market, and I have a much newer, much fancier machine, but that's not what this project is about. I want to show you that you don't need the latest, greatest, fanciest equipment to make a really fun and really special and really well put together quilt. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my machine. Doesn't need a lot of setup because it's fully mechanical. I'm going to take both my threads on my machine and put them to the back, and we're going to start sewing this quilt together. We're all set with our block pieces and our sewing machine. I have a 1/4 inch sewing foot on my sewing machine. That means that putting the fabric right up against this foot right here will give me a 1/4 inch guide. When we're putting a block together like this, we're going to put it together in rows. That means putting these 3 pieces together, and then putting these 3 pieces together, and then these 3 pieces together to make 3 rows. Then we'll stitch the rows together and have our block complete. Start with your first 2 pieces, put them right sides together. The important part is to remember this is the seam we're sewing, especially if you have directional fabric like trees that are up and down. If you accidentally sew the other side, they'll end up turned upside down. So this is the seam that I'm sewing. I prefer not to use pins on small pieces like this, but you absolutely can. If you're going to use pins, you'll want to insert them this direction, like this. Some people like putting in just a single pin because it gives them a point of reference, or it reminds them that this is the seam, or it just makes them feel more secure. Using pins is absolutely up to you. I'm going to use them on this first seam to show you how it's done, but I'm not going to use them on any of the other seams on this block because they're all fairly small. We're going to take the fabric over to our sewing machine and put our presser foot down right up against the edge of this fabric. We're lining the fabric up here, and our needle is just before the fabric. Make sure that your thread tails are behind the sewing machine. People who find that their machines are getting unthreaded all the time, there's two reasons for this. The first is that their tails are not behind and being clamped down, and the other is that this that takes up the thread is in the down position. If the very first thing the machine does is pull the thread up, it's going to pull it right out of your needle. So having it already up, so the first stitch it takes is down, is going to keep your needle from getting unthreaded. Gently press on your presser foot and start stitching. Before you get to this pin, pull it out and out of the way. You don't want to stitch over your pins. There's a chance you could stitch right into that pin. The pin could bend and mess up all your gears and mechanics down inside your machine. It can also chip your needle, which can mess with your stitches. Up to that pin, but not through it or over it. And all the way down to the end. When you're done, always end with that up in the sky. And you're done with your first piece. Go ahead and check to make sure it looks right. Grab your next piece and put them together. We're going to go ahead and do this for all 3 rows. Okay, we have all 3 rows stitched together. Before we stitch the rows into our completed block, we need to press the seams. Pressing is important because if you tried to stitch these right now, you'd get something like this, and you'd actually lose quite a bit of the fabric in those seams. So to keep everything flat, keep everything lined up, we're going to press. So turn over the rows and see your seams. Generally, when quilting, we like to press our seams towards the darker fabric. This is my white fabric, so I'll be pressing towards the dark in. With this, I'll be pressing out, and with this, I'll be pressing in again. You'll hear all different kinds of quilters talking about with steam, without steam, if you should press your threads into your fabric first and then press them, if you should press from the front or from the back. There are so many different schools of thought. I say do what works for you and what keeps your quilt blocks looking great. For these kinds of seams, I like pressing from the back and then flipping over and giving a good press from the front. Perfect. Now this, I'm pressing out. Done. Last one, I'm pressing these pieces in. Everything's all pressed. I'm going to flip these over and show you one more reason that I pressed in and out and in again. Because I've pressed these seams in and these seams out, you'll see they're going in different directions. So when I put these on top of each other, there won't be a lot of bulk. Had I pressed this seam in, I would have all 3 layers here and all 3 layers here all coming together into a big 6-layer bulk. That will be tougher for me to quilt through later and can create kind of a bubble or bump in the quilt. So pressing some out and some in when they come together prevents that from happening. It also means that when I put these together, I'll actually be able to nest my seams. And you'll see what this is like when you do it yourself. You can actually feel with the tips of your fingers where the 2 seams are just coming together perfectly. If they lay over each other or there's a bump, you can feel that with your fingers. And that's an easy way to get perfect points every time. It's one of those secrets I wish someone had taught me at the very beginning of my quilting career, is nesting seams. So I'm going to nest those seams. If you want, go ahead and put a pin there. Take it to the sewing machine. Make sure that they still nest and that they're not bumping or leaving a gap. My thread's tail's behind me. And sew. Now I'm going to make sure that this second set nests as well. Keep everything lined up and keep sewing. All the way to the top and cut. Now I'm ready for the second and last seam. Put the 2 pieces together. Now if you're someone who likes to pin, I'll show you how that's done. Go ahead and nest those seams. Grab your pin and just pin right through that seam. Same on the other side. You want to nest both seams at the very beginning when you're pinning, because you can't really pin it successfully when you're already under the needle of your sewing machine. Line those up. Grab your pin and pin right through. Let's take the sewing machine, the reds to the back. Remember, stitch all the way up to that pin, but not through it. Make sure we're lining up these back points. We could have put a pin there, but again, I'm not a big pinner. You could put 16 pins on there. I don't think it's really going to help. If you use pins, definitely use them in critical points, but just don't pin just for the sake of pinning. Our block is all put together. One last thing to do, and that's to press. You can choose which way to press. If I have a choice, I like to press my seams outwards, so in the direction we're going. You can see when I press, I'm putting a little bit of tension on this fabric. I'm not stretching it, I'm not pulling it, I'm not yanking it, I'm just giving it a little bit of tension to make sure that that seam goes flat. And then the other side. And that's how easy it is to make the 9 patch. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And make sure you subscribe to this channel so you get updates on all the other block projects. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next week.